Hey there everyone, welcome back to our video series of building responsive designs using Figma. And I'm your course instructor again, Naveed. So before we proceed, please remember to log in to our channel, Skill Fusion Academy, and hit the red subscribe button, which will help you to stay tuned with all our upcoming videos and details, including this amazing series of building responsive designs using Figma. Okay then. So previously, what we talked about was how to leverage the auto layout feature on Figma, and how you can technically align your components, different elements of your user interface into a more uniform, consistent layout. And today we are going to use our knowledge from the previous session into building a responsive navigation bar for our new website. So let's go. Now, throughout the course of this video series, we are going to explore some new challenges, and one of the challenges is going to be converting this existing website layout into one for an e-commerce website. So we will dive into that later. Right now, let's keep things simple and build a responsive navigation bar using the components that we already have. Now, let's zoom in a little bit, and as you can see here, this is the website template we built in one of our earlier video sessions, and it consists of a business logo. It consists of the most basic website navigation bar features: about, services, projects, blog, and contact. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that this navigation bar and this template in general is not responsive, as you can see here. So all the components are static, the frame itself is static. So let's try to build a responsive template. And the first thing we are going to do is we are going to select all these individual elements from the navigation bar here. We are going to duplicate them and bring them over here. Just so you remember, right now we are just focusing on building the navigation bar, so we will come to the rest of the website later. Alright, so now that we have our components here, what happens if we drag them? See, it seems to be responsive right now, but it's not in the grand scheme of things, because we have not included the auto layout feature, and whenever you try to shift or switch any of these components, they all have to be done manually, which you definitely don't want to do. Okay, so the first thing we will do is that we have this logo on the left. Let's bring it a little closer. Alright, now what we will do is select each of these elements, the navigation menu items, right click, select all of them into a frame, click auto layout. There we go. Now the elements are more evenly spaced. What happens is that right now we can easily change or modify the spacing and the padding inside the contents by going into the navigation bar on the right. So for instance, if you go into the auto layout properties on the right, you see here that the padding here is 72. Now if you hover your mouse over 72, you'll see that inside the frame itself, you'll see some purple or pinkish rectangles pop up, which represent the exact width or the number of or the exact gap between the items. Let's see what happens when we shift it up to 90. There we go. So the space is a little bigger. Another thing we can do is that once we select the frame, because it's in auto layout, we can select this little menu on the right, which is the advanced auto layout settings, and see here that we have the strokes selected as excluded. We will select them as included in layout. Okay. Now, what we do is we have this frame as an auto layout. Now we select, before we select Navigatex, the logo itself, inside the auto layout, let's try to add some padding here. First of all, we select the horizontal padding. Let's do it at 20. Okay, we have some padding there. Now let's add some vertical padding, also 20. There we go. It seems pretty healthy. And now we are going to add the logo itself and create another frame. Right click, frame selection, and then auto layout again. Now as you see, all the items here are uniformly aligned. However, if you look closely, you see that the logo itself is actually a bit top aligned instead of middle aligned. This is an easy fix. If you come to the right hand side, you'll see that this is the top left alignment. We will select the align left and middle. You see that? So now that the logo and all the other elements are middle aligned, we have a navigation bar which is in auto layout format. Let's see what happens when we drag this. Nothing. That's because we still have a couple of things left to do. So the first thing we will do is to select this the auto layout on the right, and we will go to the top of the navigation bar on the right hand side. Now, one property that's selected here is hug, which means that this rectangle technically hugs all the elements that are inside this auto layout. If we select fill instead, nothing happens, or rather nothing seems to be happening. The reason being that if you select frame again, and if you hover here, hover over the middle here, you'll see this pink bar once again, which is represented on the right hand side in the auto layout properties as 484, which is the gap between the logo and this auto layout. Just to reconfirm once again, this number here, the 484, represents the gap between the logo and the auto layout on the right hand side. Now that is your entire navigation bar. Now there's some more work we need to do before we can call this a responsive navigation bar. The first thing we will do now is to reduce the gap between the logo and this auto layout. So let's bring it down from 484 to, let's say, 300. Okay, now we see that this auto layout, which is the navigation bar items, are kind of leaning towards the middle, which does not really look professional unless you have a more formal alignment, either towards absolute left, on the absolute middle, or the absolute right. So what we'll do now is to go to the auto layout properties and select align right. There we go. Now we have the entire menu right aligned, and we also have it on fill. So let's select this navigation item once again. Let's go to the properties and select fill. We add a fill, and that's the default color. Let's add some padding to it. The horizontal padding would be around 20. Okay, that looks good. And the vertical padding around 20. Oh, that's a bit too much. Let's do it 10. Okay, that looks good. Now to test it out. And there we go. So that is an example of a responsive navigation bar. Alrighty, so now that we have taken our first step in the design of a responsive user interface, we will proceed to add further responsiveness to our navigation bar with the individual menu items. What happens when you hover over a website menu and you take your mouse and hover over each of the individual navigation bar items? We will come to that in our next video, so stay tuned. and let's continue to have fun.